The message came through the dark void of space like a faint, desperate cry. Far away from Earth, on a small blue-green planet called Valtor, the aliens were fighting for their survival. Their world was being attacked by a ruthless enemy, one that showed no mercy and left destruction wherever it went. The Valtorians, peaceful beings who never wanted war, now faced the worst nightmare. Their cities were burning, their people were scared, and hope was slipping away fast. In their last act of desperation, the Valtorian leaders sent a call for help across the stars. They chose Earth because of the stories they had heard, of a strong and clever race with the power to protect others. The message was clear. Help us. Save us from the enemy. They hoped for something small, maybe some supplies, or a few ships to help fight the invaders. They never imagined what would come next. Back on Earth, the message arrived in the control room of the United Nations Space Command. The room was quiet but tense as scientists, military officers, and world leaders gathered around glowing screens. They stared at the images and data streaming from the distant planet. The situation was worse than anyone had expected. The enemy was close to destroying the Valtorians' last stronghold. Dr. Emily Carter, a leading scientist, looked up from her console. "This is urgent," she said softly. "They need help immediately. But what kind of help can we offer? We don't know much about their enemy." General Marcus Lee, a tough, experienced man, stood by the large window overlooking the command deck. "We can't just send a few ships or supplies. This enemy sounds dangerous. If we send only a small force, it might not be enough. The Valtorians could be wiped out before help arrives." There was a long pause. Everyone knew the risks. Sending a large force into unknown space was dangerous. But leaving the Valtorians to die was not an option. The leaders began to debate. Some said Earth should only send aid ships with food, medicine, and weapons. Others wanted to prepare soldiers, ready for battle. The question was, what was the right choice? Should they risk war or try to save lives quietly? While the debate continued, the news spread quietly among the people of Earth. The world held its breath, waiting to see what their leaders would decide. Could Earth rise to the challenge and become the protector the galaxy needed? Or would fear and caution hold them back? Back in the command room, the tension grew. Time was running out. The Valtorians' signal was clear and desperate. Every moment wasted could mean the end of a civilization. Suddenly, the commander's voice broke through the silence. "We have a decision." All eyes turned to him. The room fell quiet. "We will not send just aid," he said firmly. "We will send the full strength of Earth's fleet. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon ready for battle. We will show the galaxy that humanity does not turn away from those in need." The room erupted with a mixture of surprise and determination. Some were shocked at the boldness, others were proud. The plan was more than anyone had expected. Meanwhile, far away, the Valtorians watched the skies nervously. They had sent their plea and waited for a small sign of help. They never dreamed Earth would send a fleet, an entire armada, across the stars. What was humanity planning? Was this a sign of friendship or war? As Earth's fleet began to prepare, the atmosphere was filled with urgency and power. Ships were fueled, weapons tested, and pilots trained for what lay ahead. It was a silent promise to the universe that Earth was ready to defend the helpless. The Valtorians, seeing the large number of ships departing, felt a strange mix of hope and fear. They had called for help, but this was more than they ever imagined. Was humanity stepping into a war they could not handle? Or was this the beginning of something greater? The stars watched silently as Earth's fleet moved into position, ready to cross the dark space between worlds. The universe held its breath, waiting to see if humanity's power would bring peace or ignite a greater conflict. For now, one thing was certain. The message had been heard, and Earth had responded, not with small help, but with firepower that no one expected. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, and the story of humanity's strength was about to begin. Teator. Fleet moved silently through the vast emptiness of space, shining like a silver arrow aimed at the distant planet of Valtor. On board the ships, the crew was busy preparing for what might be the greatest battle in human history. The people of Earth, had never sent so many ships to fight in a faraway place. This was no simple mission. It was a message to the galaxy that humans were ready to defend those in need, with full force. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars blur past. She was calm but alert. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. Around her, pilots checked their controls and engineers ran final tests on powerful weapons. The ships were packed with soldiers, ready for anything. "We don't know what enemy we will face," Sarah said quietly to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen. "But we will show them Earth's strength. We fight for peace, but we are ready for war." The soldiers felt the weight of the mission. They were not only protecting Valtor, but also showing the galaxy that humans were no longer to be underestimated. Each ship carried advanced weapons, laser cannons, missile systems, and shields stronger than anything used before. The technology was a secret kept on Earth for decades. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the world watched in nervous silence. News, channels broadcast live updates, and people everywhere prayed for the fleet's safe journey. Some feared war. Others believed this was a chance to make new allies and protect innocent lives. On Valtor, the aliens observed the approaching fleet with mixed feelings. They had asked for help but did not expect such a show of power. Some leaders worried. "Are humans coming as friends, or will they bring more destruction?" they whispered. The enemy ships had not stopped their attacks. Their dark fleets were closing in on Valtor's last cities, leaving destruction behind. The clock was ticking. Captain Sarah's fleet moved closer to Valtor. Sensors picked up signals from the enemy. A huge, aggressive force waiting for a fight. The tension grew with every passing moment. The humans sent a message to Valtor's leaders. "We are here to protect you. Prepare for defense." The Valtorians sent back thanks, but also a warning. "The enemy is stronger than you imagine. Be careful." Sarah nodded. She knew this would be no easy battle. As the fleet formed into battle lines, pilots strapped into their cockpits, hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and courage. This was more than a fight for one planet. It was a test of humanity's place in the stars. Suddenly, the enemy fleet appeared from behind an asteroid belt, their ships dark and menacing. The space between the two forces lit up with bright flashes. As the battle began, explosions rocked the ships, alarms blared, and voices shouted orders. The humans fought fiercely, using every weapon and tactic they had. Their fleet was powerful, but the enemy was relentless. In the chaos, Captain Sarah saw a group of small enemy fighters breaking through the defenses, heading straight for the Valtorian capital city. She knew she had to act fast. "Launch the interceptors," she ordered. "Protect the city at all costs." Pilots rushed to their fighters and soared into space, chasing the enemy ships. The battle was intense, with dogfights weaving through the stars. Back on the flagship, engineers worked to keep the ship running under fire. Every second counted. The Valtorians watched from their planet's surface, hope growing with each successful defense. They began to believe that Earth's fleet might actually save them. But the enemy was clever. They had hidden weapons and traps, waiting for the right moment to strike back. As the first day of battle came to an end, the humans and aliens prepared for the fight ahead. Both sides were exhausted but determined. Captain Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would not give up easily, and Earth's fleet had to be ready for anything. The stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see who would win this battle of survival and strength. And far away on Earth, millions waited, hoping their warriors would bring peace, or at least survive the firestorm to fight another day. The battle was far from over. As dawn broke on the Valtorian skies, the human fleet held its position near the planet, ready for whatever came next. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood once again on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes fixed on the swirling enemy forces beyond the planet's atmosphere. The Valtorians watched from below, still unsure what to expect from these strange new allies who had come not with simple aid, but with an entire armada. The first moments of contact had shocked everyone. The Valtorian leaders had hoped for supplies, maybe a small team to help fight, but instead, they saw hundreds of massive ships, bristling with weapons. Some were afraid. Was this a show of friendship or a warning? The humans, however, made their intentions clear. They were here to protect, no matter the cost. Suddenly, enemy forces emerged from the shadows of a nearby asteroid field, their ships moving faster and more aggressive than before. They were clearly not expecting such resistance. The humans had prepared well, using advanced technology and battle tactics that the enemy had never faced. Lieutenant Chen reported rapidly. Enemy fleet closing in from the North Quadrant. They've deployed new weapon systems. We haven't seen these before. Captain Sarah's face tightened. Alert all pilots. Prepare for full combat. Protect the Valtorian cities at all costs. The space around the planet exploded into chaos. Bright laser beams cut through the darkness, missiles streaked toward targets, and ships twisted and turned with expert precision. The humans fought not just with weapons, but with strategy and heart. Every move was calculated, every action meant to keep the Valtorians safe. On the planet, the Valtorian people gathered in their shelters, listening to distant echoes of the battle above. Their hope rested on the humans, but fear lingered. Could this fierce race from Earth truly save them from destruction? Inside the human flagship, tension ran high. The enemy was stronger than expected, and casualties began to mount. Engineers worked furiously to repair damage, while medics prepared for the wounded. Captain Sarah knew the turning point of the battle was near. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Incoming enemy bombers heading toward the capital city, the communications officer shouted. Sarah's heart raced. Divert fighters to intercept. We cannot let the city fall. Squadrons of human pilots launched into the black sky, weaving through enemy fire. The dogfights were fierce, with explosions lighting up the void. Each pilot fought with everything they had, knowing the lives of millions below depended on them. As the battle raged, a strange silence fell for a brief moment. Then, a new threat appeared. Massive enemy warships with shields stronger than any before. The humans' weapons seemed to bounce harmlessly off their armor. Shields holding, but just barely, the weapons officer reported. We need a new plan, Captain Sarah thought quickly. Activate the experimental plasma cannons. Focus fire on their shield generators. We must break through. The cannons charged, glowing bright with energy. When fired, they tore through the enemy's defenses, causing huge explosions that rocked the enemy fleet. The tide of battle shifted. The Valtorians watched in awe. They had never seen such power or courage. Slowly, hope grew in their hearts. But the enemy was not finished. More ships appeared, stronger and more numerous. The battle was far from decided. Captain Sarah gathered her officers. This fight will test us all, but we will not back down. We fight for peace, for the Valtorians, for Earth. Prepare for the next wave. As the enemy regrouped for another assault, the humans and Valtorians knew one thing for sure. This war would change everything. The stars above shone cold and distant, but down below, courage burned bright in the hearts of those who refused to give up. ChatGPT said the battle had stretched into its second day, and the human fleet showed no signs of weakening. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood firmly on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes scanning the star-filled battlefield. The enemy was fierce and determined, but so were the humans. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon was pushed to its limit. Below, on the surface of Valtor, the alien people dared to hope again. They saw the powerful ships circling their planet, fighting off waves of attackers. It was more help than they had ever dreamed of. Children watched the skies, whispering stories of the strange warriors from Earth who had come to save them. But the enemy was not defeated yet. Hidden forces emerged from deep space, attacking from unexpected directions. The human fleet was forced to split its forces, stretching thin to protect Valtor's cities. Captain Sarah knew this was the most dangerous moment. We must hold the line, she told her crew. If we fail here, Valtor falls. As the enemy closed in, the flagship was hit by a powerful blast. Alarms rang out, and the crew rushed to damage control stations. The ship rocked violently, but the crew held steady, repairing systems as fast as they could. In the heat of battle, Sarah received an urgent message from the Valtorian leaders. Our defenses are failing. If your fleet cannot stop them, we will lose everything. The words burned like fire in Sarah's mind. She could not let that happen. Prepare the ground forces, she ordered. We are landing soldiers on Valtor. The fight must be taken to the enemy. Troops equipped with powerful armor and advanced weapons boarded transports. They would join the Valtorians in battle on the planet's surface. As the transports moved down through the atmosphere, Sarah watched closely. The enemy was aware of their move and fired heavily at the descending ships. Explosions lit the sky, but most transports made it safely. On the ground, human soldiers joined with Valtorian fighters. They fought side by side, their weapons lighting up the battlefield. It was a brutal and desperate fight, but together they pushed back the enemy forces. Meanwhile, the fleet in space continued to battle fiercely. The enemy sent wave after wave of ships, but the humans stood firm. New tactics and teamwork gave them the edge. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Captain Sarah knew this victory was only the start. The enemy's leader was still out there, planning the next strike. As the sun set over Valtor, the soldiers on the ground took a moment to catch their breath. They looked up at the stars, knowing the fight was far from over. The humans had answered the call with firepower and courage. Now, they were determined to see it through to the end. The battle for Valtor was a test of strength, trust, and hope, and humanity was ready to meet that challenge, no matter the cost. The war had reached its breaking point. After days of fierce fighting in space and on the surface of Valtor, both sides were exhausted but refused to give up. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the flagship, her face hard with determination. This was the moment that would decide the fate of the planet, and perhaps the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. The enemy's forces were gathering for one final attack. Their massive warships formed a dark wall against the stars, ready to crush the defenders. The humans and Valtorians prepared for what could be the bloodiest battle yet. Sarah called her officers together. This is it. We fight with everything we have. We protect Valtor, and we prove that humanity is a force no one can ignore. As the enemy charged, the fleet unleashed a storm of fire. Laser beams and missiles tore through space, lighting up the darkness like a deadly fireworks show. The ground forces battled fiercely, pushing the enemy back step by step. The enemy leader appeared on the battlefield, a towering warlord commanding fear and destruction. The Valtorians and humans faced him together, their courage united. The battle raged with fury, but slowly, the defenders gained ground. Captain Sarah led a daring strike directly against the enemy warlord's flagship. It was a risky move, but it might end the war. With expert skill, Sarah's ship broke through enemy lines and unleashed a powerful blast that shattered the warlord's shields. The enemy flagship exploded in a brilliant fireball, signaling the fall of their leader. The enemy fleet, losing hope, began to retreat. The humans and Valtorians watched as the dark ships disappeared into the void. On the ground, cheers rose among the soldiers. The war was over. Captain Sarah looked out at the stars, knowing this victory was more than just saving one planet. It was a message to the galaxy. Humanity was ready to protect those in need, not with small aid, but with full force. Back on Valtor, the people celebrated their new allies. The humans had come when others might have hesitated, bringing firepower and hope. The bond between the two races had been forged in the heat of battle. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, Sarah sent a message home. We answered the call. We fought for peace. And we showed the universe what humanity is capable of. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as the fleet turned toward home. The fight had been hard, but humanity had risen to the challenge. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had taken notice, and the defenders of Earth were ready for whatever came next.